Hello, everyone. Recently, I've been watching Strike Back because of a recommendation that was thrown my way. For those of you who haven't seen it, Strike Back is a TV show that displays what some would call toxic masculinity. It's like a cross between Call of Duty and God of War. It's like the two had a baby and it was a live action TV show. The main characters go through every episode, gunning down scores of enemies that just can't seem to hit their targets. Either that or the main characters seem to have some pretty good health regeneration. One of the characters beds a new woman every 3 episodes or so without so much as telling her his name. Generally, Straight Back is just mindless fun. The writers care more for the fun than realism. However, there was a character art that stood out to me in season 4. The one of Major Rachel Dalton. Dalton is a special agent who is the commanding officer of Section 20. I'm not sure of her exact credentials, but she's basically the boss. She directs the operations and occasionally engages in combat in which she is more than capable. In other words, she's a badass. There comes a point where she's undercover and her cover gets blown. When this happens, her partner is killed in front of her, and she manages to record a video of it. What happens next is what I found interesting. After the incident, Major Dalton seeks to exact her retribution and loses sight of the mission's goals. She plays the video of her partner's death over and over, and her emotions begin to get the best of her. She knows that it was her fault as the leader, that her man was killed in action, but she still seeks to place the blame on other operatives. She lets her emotions cloud her judgment, and it results in her placing her men in excess danger several times. Her rigid military discipline flies out the window in an instant. Soon after, she is suspended for her behavior. However, that doesn't stop her from creating more trouble later on. I didn't only find this art interesting because they added a great deal of depth to the character in a show that's otherwise fairly shallow, but they also subtly handled an aspect of female nature without sugarcoating it. In some sense, I'm not really surprised. I've never known Cinemax to really care about what feminists think, and the earlier occurrences in this show, as well as their other shows, show that. But it's still impressive in this political climate to even see a show portray a woman in this light. The writers had the balls to make a woman a leader, and then they had the balls to make her fuck up colossally. They showed that women can be great leaders, and women are also a bit more emotional than men. That is reality, and reality isn't politically correct. Why should fiction have to be? I don't think they were thinking of the character of Major Dalton as a woman when they wrote her that way. I mean, maybe they were thinking of her as a woman, but what I'm trying to say is they probably weren't trying to make a statement. It was just the direction they took the story, and I can appreciate that. I'm just glad they had the freedom to do it. They didn't have to worry about that executives going, wait a minute, you can't portray a strong independent woman failing. The scenario that I'm presenting may sound absurd at first, but you have to consider that these are the times that we live in. Jurassic World was just called sexist for a myriad of reasons. One being that the strong female character in power was not portrayed exactly to the liking of feminists. I have no problem with seeing women in powerful positions in fiction or the real world. In fact, it makes me happy to know that there are women willing to work hard to get where they need to be. What I do have a problem with is any criticism of them being silenced because of their gender or position. But back on the topic of political correctness, I don't totally understand the fear many people have today of seeing certain things in a fictional context. I mean, before, a lot of these fears were based on religion, and that's understandable. Religion has a set of rules that people have to follow, or they try to, or they're supposed to. But now I don't get it, as far less people are religious nowadays. And shielding yourself from the idea of these things existing doesn't shield you from the reality of them occurring. There was a lot of outrage when Game of Thrones shows Sansa Stark getting raped by her husband this season. Well, at least they called it rape, even though she married him knowing full well that he was a psychopath, and knowing full well that she would have to sleep with him. When it was time to consummate the marriage, Ramsay decided to do it in an uncomfortable fashion, as uncomfortably as he could muster, just as the character was expected to do, and just as he was written to do. He was a cruel person, and he did wicked things. And this was the path that the story was heading down. You could see it coming from a mile away, and yet this was too much. This warranted boycotts of the show. The writer, according to those so-called fans, was wrong for allowing bad things to happen to an innocent person, an innocent character, a fictional character. There should have been rose petals on the bed. Ramsay should have disrobed her gently while kissing her neck, and then he should have gone down on her for 20 minutes. I read a book which had testimonies of war survivors and survivors of the many African wars waged in the 20th century. Needless to say, war is hell. But there was one particularly graphic tale. Um, I'm pretty sure that I'm remembering it better than it actually was. Because when I read it, it made me feel sick. I was disturbed by it, and I'm not disturbed by much. But there was a story that a woman relayed of herself being raped when she was a teenager by a soldier's assault rifle until she bled. But she survived and she persevered and she told her story. This is reality. The soldier didn't give her a trigger warning, please, no pun intended, before he raped her. And no amount of walls of trigger warnings placed on her account will undo what happened to her, nor will they prevent it from happening again. Quite the opposite. Apparently, bad things really do happen to innocent people. I closed my eyes for a few seconds and bad things still happened. I plugged my ears and bad things still happened. What now? We as humans shouldn't be afraid to acknowledge the darkness in human nature and the horrors of life. We have to if we want to do anything about it in reality. Police officers don't get to choose how gruesome a crime scene is. Soldiers can't choose which limbs will get blown off. Feelings make poor body armor. Fiction can remind us of the reality we're lucky enough not to experience. It allows us to vicariously see what it's like to go to those places, and it allows us to empathize with those that have to. The bad men on TV aren't real. Don't run away from them. That's all I have to say for that. More on the way.